Hey, welcome to another episode of Back Up the Vocals, where we look at the songs that we sing at Celebration Church and we see how the thoughts, the lyrics, the theology is literally pulled from the Bible. One of the things that we pride ourselves in at Celebration Church is that we are not flippant with the songs that we sing on Sunday morning, but we comb over them to make sure that we are singing things that are biblically accurate. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to show you how the songs we are singing are literally pulled from the Bible, from the scriptures. And today, the song that we're going to be looking at is a song that many of us at Celebration, we know and love. We've been singing it for a few years now, and it's one that I love to lead. I enjoy leading it. So many other people have led it so well, and I know so many people in our church resonate with it, and it's a song called Another in the Fire. Again, it's such a powerful song. The song goes like this. The chorus in particular goes like this. There is another in the fire standing next to me. There is another in the waters holding back the seas. And the last portion of the chorus changes every time you sing it, but this particular one, the middle one, goes, and should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds no body, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. This idea of another being in the fire, it can be kind of confusing right at first glance. What does this mean? There's another in the fire. What fire are we talking about? Another what in the fire? But this idea comes straight from the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is an Old Testament book, and specifically it comes right out of chapter 3. In this particular moment, just to kind of set the scene for you, the children of God are being held in captivity in Babylon. The king of Babylon, in this particular moment, it changes multiple times throughout the book of Daniel, but in this particular moment, chapter 3 is a king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, and he has erected this gold statue of himself. Talk about narcissistic. Gold statue of himself, and has commanded that every time of the day when a certain gong goes off, everyone is to bow down and worship this golden image shaped after him. But there are three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refuse to bow down to this statue. They refuse to give up being faithful to the God of the Bible, to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to Yahweh, the God you and I now know today as Father, the one who sent Jesus to the planet. They refused to be disloyal to him. So they obviously rebelled. They don't bow down to the statue, and there was a punishment that was to be given out to anyone who did not bow down. And the punishment was this, that they were going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. So King Nebuchadnezzar has to abide by the law. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not do what they were supposed to do. So he has them bound hand and foot and thrown into this fiery furnace. And this is where we pick up in Daniel chapter 3. I'll start reading at verse 21. It says this, then these men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and other garments, and were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent, the furnace overheated. The flames of the fire killed those men who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound. Notice that. They fell bound. They were tied up. They were in bondages. They fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, listen to this, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? King Nebuchadnezzar is so confused. In fact, the Bible says he's astonished because he said, didn't we just toss 3 guys into the fire? The men answered, true, O king, we did. And the king answered and said this, but I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the 4th is like the Son of God. So here in this moment, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have been thrown into the fiery furnace. They are in the fires, the things that are supposed to burn them up. In fact, we see that they're so hot because the men who threw them in there got close enough and they died, literally burnt up in that moment. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego don't get spared from the fire. They get thrown into the midst of the fire. And notice this, King Nebuchadnezzar notices there's a fourth man in the fire. God literally showed up in the midst of the fire, in the midst of the circumstance, in the midst of the trial, in the midst of the bad season. God didn't prevent the bad season, but he still showed up in the bad season. And that's the thing you need to understand. And that's what we are singing about when we sing Another in the Fire, is that God doesn't always prevent things, but he will always show up in the midst of them. That there is another in the fire, that God is not far away at a distance looking at you, untouched by your flames that you are in, and saying, I wonder how you're going to deal with that. I wonder how you're going to figure your way out of this one. That's not the kind of God we serve, and that's not the kind of God we're singing about when we sing Another in the Fire. No, we're singing about one who steps into the fire with us. And notice this, they were thrown in bound, but then when King Nebuchadnezzar notices them, he says they're all unbound. The fire didn't burn them, but it burnt up what bound them. This reminds me of another passage that says this, God takes what the enemy meant for evil and he turns it around for our good. That God takes what the enemy meant to destroy us and he uses it to set us free. The fire didn't burn them, but it did burn what bound them. The fire is ultimately, if you will allow God into it, going to make you better. The fire is going to refine you, that you're going to come out of the fire and not smell like smoke. I don't know what your fire is today, but I'm here to tell you there's another in the fire, that God is in the fire with you. God is not at a distance. He's not mysteriously disappeared. He's not aloof. He's not austere, but he's drawn near. God is in the hardship with you. God is in the rough season with you, that he is in the valley with you. You're never alone is what we're singing about when we sing Another in the Fire, that God is in the trial. He is in the flame. He is in the hard season with you. And I hope you never forget that.